Hi, I'm Tyler.
And I'm Sarah.
We're from the Sorcerer's Guide.
In today's video, we are going to talk about the Princess and the Frog leak from this week, the pause of Magic Key sales, and then some interesting observations we have about the virtual queue for World of Color. Did you hear about the exciting Princess and the Frog news this week?
I did. Why don't you share the story with us?
So, for those of you that don't know, Anika Noni Rose, she's friends with Tiana. She voiced Tiana in Princess and the Frog, and she was on Live with Ryan and Kelly this week. They were talking a little bit about Princess and the Frog, and she talked a little bit about the new attraction that Disney announced. And she mentioned that she's been a big part of it and really involved, and that it's opening in 2024, which was not confirmed at that time by Disney.
She said that if she said any more, she'd get sucked in the ground and we never see her again.
Yeah.
Great story. I don't totally buy it, though. I mean, right opening in 2024, okay, that part can be true. I don't think that she was leaking. I think she was set up and she was supposed to say that. Disney's press release about it later was, hey, we're sharing more information. And if she was saying something like trying to skirt around what she's allowed to do and they hadn't set her up to say that, the reaction would have been something more like, hey, we haven't announced anything, but more news will be coming sometime in the future. But they had this statement all released and, hey, we're doing it at this day, this time, this place. And it just seemed like she was supposed to say that. It was set up.
Yeah. So Disney came out and said that at the Essence Festival of Culture, which is late June, early July in New Orleans, that they'd give some more details. And it makes sense that they'd kind of wait until the big New Orleans festival to make more details about that. But I agree. I don't think it's often that we get leaks like that really are true leaks.
Yeah. So what are they going to say at the Essence Festival?
Well, I hope they give us some more information, because we don't have lots of information about what this attraction's actually going to be.
Yeah. Concept art would be great.
Yep.
I am crossing my fingers, holding my breath, hoping for Tiana's place at Cafe Orleans. I know it's going to be separated from the ride Haunted Mansion's in the middle for Disneyland, but it just doesn't make any sense to me that she doesn't have a restaurant. Tiana's... I want to go buy Tiana's world famous gumbo, and they're already selling her world famous beignets there, so let's make the restaurant hers. Let her own it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Can we actually get a 2024 opening?
It's probably doable. The Incredicoaster got its remake from California Screamin'. That only took about a year, right?
That's probably true.
And so what does this timeline look like? If they're going to make announcements about it in July at the Essence Festival, then they're not doing any construction this summer. They're not going to shut it down for Halloween. They're not going to shut it down for Christmas. I'm pretty confident, and we've talked about this before, they're probably going to have a big Splash Mountain party for the last couple months, sell all kinds of merchandise, and get everybody in one last time to ride it, try to make some money off of it before they close it.
People want to say goodbye.
Yeah. And they're going to give us a couple months to do that sort of thing. And I don't think it's going to happen during the holidays. So I think at least January, February 2023, it's going to be open for those kinds of events. Maybe end of February, early March is when they'll end up closing it. So then if they can do construction in about a year, then you're ready for 2024. If construction goes really slow, they run into problems, they might miss it. And especially since it's still going to be a water ride, I bet they want it for summer of 2024.
Okay. So maybe like Memorial Day opening, they like to do that.
Yeah.
So that would be awesome.
Yeah. I'll miss Splash Mountain, but I am excited for a Tiana ride. I really wish it was going to be Disney World or Disneyland, because I would love to be able to do both rides. And I'm still in the camp of I'd rather have the parks be different. I want a reason to have to go to both.
Yeah. And I mean, they did that with Guardians and Tower of Terror. They switched Tower of Terror over, and I love Guardians, but it's so nice to be able to ride the original. So would be nice, but we'll see what they announce in July.
Coming soon.
Yep. The other exciting news this week had to do with Magic Keys. So Disney announced that they're no longer selling Magic Keys. That was kind of interesting news this week. What do you think that means?
I'm still trying to figure out, does this mean they're pausing sales now, or does it mean, hey, we're never selling these again? they're going to have some kind of an annual pass program. I mean, when they shut down annual passes and said we're going to come up with a new program, it's going to be totally different. They added reservations to all the passes, which really matched the Flex Pass anyway. I don't think Magic Keys annual passes, this whole concept is going away, but I think they are going to try to restructure it and rebrand it to get away from all of the bad PR they've had over the reservation nightmare.
Yeah. So they've had their big lawsuit. Back last year, a lady sued Disney. She bought the Dream Key, which was advertised as having no blackout dates. And then she couldn't get in the park the whole month of November because all of the reservations were gone.
If we don't have Dream Keys, if we did, I would be upset about that time. We've done pretty well. We've been able to get reservations basically every time we wanted them, but I think we're in the minority that way.
Yeah.
We've gotten pretty lucky that either reservations opening last minute or being able to plan far enough in advance. We've been fine, but not everyone's worked that way. If I were in her shoes, I would be upset.
And originally it sounded like Disney was going to try to get that lawsuit dismissed and get rid of it. And a judge in May said, nope, this is going forward. So they're hoping to turn it into a class action lawsuit, which will get a whole lot of people involved and make it much more of a mess for Disney. So who knows how much of this has to do with that lawsuit too. Are they trying to back away and rebrand so that, like you said, they get away from that bad PR?
And if it does go into a class action lawsuit, I think you really do want sales paused at that point. You don't want to say, hey, by the way, this thing is getting sued over false advertising, and you can join the class action lawsuit too for a generous fee of $1,500, whatever the exact price is. They don't want to mess with that. If you are getting sued and they're going to end up in the courts over this, they want to distance themselves from it so that they're not making their own problem worse.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but it's going to be time to renew here soon, and there are a lot of Magic Key holders that want to renew.
Yep.
So Disney has been very tight-lipped about what they're going to do, but I would bet we get some more information in the next couple of months.
Yep.
Because they're going to be anxious to know what the plan is.
Yep.
And when World of Color returned, they announced that it would be you'd get to watch if you had a virtual queue pass. And when we went a couple of weeks back, we noticed some very big problems with the way virtual queues were working for World of Color.
So we went to Disneyland with our whole family, and we've got a few kids. They weren't all able to make it through to the end of the night, every night. And so the older kids got to do more, and they liked that. But when we saw World of Color the first time, we were watching really close. We got the virtual queue for the first showing. Very excited to go and see it, and we fought the crowds, people everywhere. We were packed in, and crowds were controlled because virtual queues. So you didn't end up with too many people in that area. It was restricted, but it was still pretty tight.
Yeah.
And we had to fight through crowds.
It was pretty disorganized, I kind of felt like. The app said you couldn't show up until like half an hour before the show started or whatever, and we wanted a good seat because we've got little kids that have to sit on shoulders and stand up, and so we wanted to get there a little early, so we went about 45 minutes before the show started, and there was already quite a line, and they packed us in like this waiting area, and we sat in this waiting area for like 45 minutes till probably 10 minutes, maybe not 45 minutes, but about 10 minutes till showtime. And then they let us all in, and it just was not organized, and the timing was off, and it felt kind of weird.
It was one of their first nights, and
it's true.
So they were figuring it out.
Yeah.
A couple days later, though, we decided we wanted to go again. We didn't watch the virtual queues as closely that time, and so we ended up getting virtual queues for the second group.
Yep.
And we thought, darn, this means the kids are going to be tired. They're going to fall asleep too early. We're not going to be able to see it.
Yeah.
But one of them ended up being awake enough. So Sarah was going to take the others to the hotel and let them go to bed, and I was going to take the one that was awake. But we were over at Disneyland, and we realized that the getting into the virtual queue, like actually getting in for the show, closed when the park closed, and we were still in Disneyland. So we booked it. We started running, thinking we got to get there in time. We want to make sure we get to see World of Color, and we got there, and there was no queue. So I started panicking, like, did we miss it? Where's everybody at? And I saw the cast members there, so I went up and scanned my virtual queue, and I walked in and I looked around and realized there is absolutely no one here. This was the 5th or 6th night of World of Color.
It was a weeknight, but it was still just
barely opened.
Ugh.
And it was the second showing for the night, but like I said, we were running. We got there. We'd been in the viewing area maybe 20 seconds when the announcement went over the loudspeakers to say the park was closed. And I put my arms out and I spun around and couldn't touch anyone. There was nobody near. We weren't even seated up in one of the higher sections. We walked down to the waterfront. And we were like the last ones there. They closed the queue. No one could get in after us.
Yeah.
And we just walked up to the waterfront and had front row perfect seats for World of Color. So great for us.
Yeah.
But the show was absolutely empty.
Yeah. Which is very different because that first show, it fills up. And there are people in the standby sections because they couldn't get into the virtual queue to watch that first show that camp out for hours beforehand. So that's crazy.
Yeah. What I think was happening was that when you're doing virtual queues, you get locked into the time. And if you're doing like fast passes for World of Color, they had those machines that you'd go up to and put your tickets in.
Yeah.
And so you'd know what time they were giving tickets out for.
Yeah.
And so if you wanted the first showing, but you got there and then realized, hey, this first one says it's for the first showing, I wanted the second showing, then, well, you just wait until people are giving the second showing.
An hour later.
But if you have to have the first showing and you see, oh, the tickets are for the second showing, then you just don't get the fast passes.
Yep.
And that way, the people who would be willing to go to the second show actually get the second show fast passes.
Yeah.
But where virtual queues go out so quick, I think everyone's just refreshing, trying to get something, and then a whole bunch of people that, like our kids, needed to go back to the hotel, wanted to go home, need some rest, whatever the case is. Only the first showing would work, but they took slots at the second show. Because they took slots at the second show, the people who were willing to stay up late weren't able to get those virtual queues, and that meant that we ended up with an empty show.
Yeah. So when we tried to get our virtual queues, the first day when we got that early show, we were on right at noon. And then we tried the next day, I think at like 12:05, and everything was sold out. It was like, oh, okay, well, we got to be more on top of it. And so then the next day, I think we pulled phone out at like 12:01.
Yeah.
And got the second show, but they're going so fast. Yeah, you can't say I want the first show or I want the second show. You just have to get on and kind of see what happens.
Yep. So I'm glad Fantasmic.
Yes.
I'm super grateful, excited. Fantasmic's back. I'm over the moon that it does not have virtual queues.
Yeah, that was.
I understand people not
surprising.
wanting to camp out in advance, and I understand people camp out anyway, and it's going to make some of the walkways clog up a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
But I like that level of queue management. Supply and demand, being able to show up and say, hey, I want to do this, and not relying on a virtual reality or a virtual lottery.
Yeah.
I like this standby, just being able to go to the show a lot better.
Yeah. And I know this opening weekend, the past few days, it was kind of difficult, obviously, because it just opened, and so everything's kind of new. But there were people that went to try to sit out, and in some areas, cast members made them get up and move and said, you can't sit here and wait for the show. But in other areas, the cast members didn't say anything. And so there were some people that waited hours and got moved at the last minute, other people, and so it was kind of a mess. And so I'm sure that they'll work some of that out. I know.
It'll get worked out.
Yeah.
It'll be fine.
Yeah. Before COVID with parades, they started saying you can't camp out more than like the hour before whatever.
Right.
So they started. So I assume we'll probably end up with some kind of rule like that again, and a way to enforce it so it's a little more fair. But yeah, it is really nice that you can go to whatever show you want, and you don't have to plan every minute of your day ahead of time.
Good stuff.
Yep.
I'm glad we've got all of our nighttime shows for Disneyland back in place.
So nice.
And it's really good having it. It makes nighttime parks feel complete again.
Yeah, they felt pretty
It's
empty
good.
without those. So it was nice to have some of those back.
Yeah. Especially Electrical Parade. Hey,
It's back again.
it's okay. I'm gonna die before that parade comes.
Oh, probably. And with the brand new float at the end, it's like it's not being retired anytime soon.
That's the new life. That's the guarantee it stays, right?
Well, I think that's it for tonight. We hope you have a fantastic, magical day.
Yeah.